Melissa Merrill here at Pro Organizer Bootcamp, and I am with the lovely Lindsay Levine from Lindsay Shea Consulting. Lindsay, welcome to today's Legal Live.
Hi, how are you? Ignore
I'm
I don't even know. I'm at my parents' house and they've used my room to store things now, so I don't know what's behind me, but I was like, what is that?
I love it. Oh my gosh, we've been talking a lot about that on the actual podcast, on the Making Shit Happen with Melissa Merrill podcast. We talk a lot about like the generational clutter and like baby boomers and holding on to stuff and like how much stuff they have like at the, towards the ending stages of their life. And like, okay, so that's like a topic for another day as far as they're using your old room. I love it. All right, let me just make sure that I am live in our Facebook group. While I'm doing that, Lindsay, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
So my name is Lindsay Levine, like you said, and I own Lindsay Shea Consulting. And my little bit of background on me is I spent over a decade in corporate America working for companies like Comcast and Miami Heat, and started my own company in which I help female business owners with the legal basics. So I wanted to get away from that, the stuffy law firm feel of way things are normally done and the high price tag. And I help these small businesses with the legal basics. So contracts, business formations and trademarking, just to help them get set so they have a solid foundation to move forward.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love your website, and I love that you're just making everything super accessible to female business owners. Really providing our small business community with the tools to create that strong foundation to really protect them. So what a cool way to like take what you love, but like you said, make it a lot less stuffy and a lot more, creative.
Yeah, because it's super confusing. It can be very unapproachable. It's the last thing anybody wants to do. I know that. So, if I can do it in a way that you can understand why you need things and just make it a little less stuffy, then why not?
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. Well, and just for some background, for those of you watching, it looks like I am live in Facebook and also on the Pro Organizer Bootcamp YouTube channel. So thank you so much for watching if you're here. A few things, if you would like to be able to interact with us, with Lindsay and I here on the Be Live stream. I'm streaming live through my favorite streaming platform, Be Live. If you'd like to comment on today's live, interact with us, ask questions, anything like that, I'll try to monitor Facebook on my phone, but it's best if you actually give Be Live access to be able to comment by enabling the plugin on your Facebook. So you'll see a little thing that says, hey, if you want to comment, plug this in. And that way we'll actually be able to kind of bring up your comments on screen and bring your questions up here live. So definitely do that if you would like to interact with us. But that being said, we did get quite a few questions in the Facebook group earlier this week. Lindsay, do you want to like dive right into those, or do you want to give us a little more background on?
Well, I mean, I'll give you, why don't I give you like a quick little, I like my little spiel as to how I see this whole foundation of legal stuff working. So basically I like to look as like you or your business is in the middle, right? And then each, like you have a triangle, and each triangle represents something that can protect your business. And in my mind, these are the three things that every business owner should be thinking about. So it's your business formation. So we're talking about, for the most part, LLCs or corporations, but for most of you, you're just going to need an LLC. So you look at that as basically a shield. So when you do business, and a lot of you like organizers are going into people's homes and stuff like that, you are essentially, you're taking a risk if you don't have an LLC, putting your personal assets like on the line. So by having an LLC, you create like a shield. So if anything happens, then, something happens, they can only touch your business assets. They can't go after your house. They can't go after your car. They can't. So super important stuff. Second, your contract. And this is really, really important. This is service agreements. So when you start getting those contracts, are people going to be like, what are you agreeing to? Services you're providing, What is payment? How can people terminate? Let's say they're not happy. And you want to have all this up front, because the biggest issue with dealing with anyone is there's miscommunication. So having all this out front is like, hey, exactly, like, what am I getting for, what are you organizing for me? What am I getting, let's say? And you want to be able to say, I'm getting A, B, and C, and the client knows they're getting A, B, and C. There's no misconception that maybe they're getting like, X, Y, and Z as well.
Yeah.
So getting all that out there is super important. Making sure, if let's say you're using somebody's house and you want to take pictures of the work, or you want to take pictures of them, you're getting your releases, your social media releases. In this day and age, you're going to someone's house, probably not a bad idea to get a COVID release either, because you don't want someone blaming for you if they end up getting COVID or something like that. So again, all these little things add to making sure that you are protected. In addition, if you're hiring somebody like an independent contractor, maybe you're using an intern, making you're protected on that end. So, you have the ability maybe to use pictures of them on your social media, but also, making sure confidentiality. So if they have a list of your vendors, or they have a list of pricing, making sure they're not, using that or sharing that with other people you don't want. Also making sure in certain states where you're allowed to, they can't come and steal your clients. You don't want that. And so all these things are really, really important. And then finally, if you have a name, making sure that name is trademarked, because your name is your brand, and you want to make sure that it's protected at all costs, because you don't want to put in time and money and then find out down the road, one, somebody's already used it and telling you can't use it, or that someone else is going to start using your name. So making sure you're protected on a trademark standpoint is really important.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions that came in was, what's the reason behind trademarking? One of the things that I first learned when I, very first started my business way back when, was the difference between a copyright and a trademark, and also the difference between those cute little icons like the little R with the circle and the TM. So share with us a little bit more on that. Like, what is the difference? When would you trademark versus when would you copyright versus when would you just not do anything?
So basically, you have to think about trademarking is like your brand, your logo, your tagline, anything. Like if you have a podcast, what you've named that podcast, think of it as more of like a general, like your overall arching umbrella of what you're calling things, how you're referring to it, what you're branding when you're putting out on Instagram. Then your copyright is more of the work. So copyright, you're thinking of like the actual, work that you're producing, like whether it's a book or maybe it's an art piece. Those are things that are copyrighted, written, versus, the actual brand, which is trademarked. And the importance of having trademarks, especially nowadays, is that before when you had like the brick and mortar buildings and stuff, you would get what was, this common law trademark. So it was an automatic thing, and you would be covered in your local area for the service that you provided. So if you had a pizza shop, and let's just say, it was called Pro Organizer Pizza Shop, and I don't know why someone would call it that, but we'll just go with it. And so no one else could open up a pizza shop with that name on it in that area. But somebody, let's say, down in San Francisco, could open up one that had that name, or somebody could open up a Pro Organizer, organization shop in the same town in a different service. So making sure, you're that was okay back then, because you really weren't, had limitations. You were opening up like a huge franchise. But now with, social media, with the internet, with being able to communicate to anyone, anywhere, and also get your products and services out there, it's really important that you're registering your trademarks on a national level to protect yourselves. And this all comes just because, one, you want to be able, to tell people, you're kind of encroaching on my territory. And I saw that question. I'll get to that. You're encroaching on my territory, so please stop that. But two, more importantly, let's say you start your company, and then down the road, somebody is already using it, or somebody has started to use your name. You have no idea, and down the road, then they tell you, "Hey, I need you to stop using that name." Well, it gets really tricky with common law stuff to see who has done what when, because it's a first come, first situation, but it's hard to prove that stuff. So that is why it's also really important to have your trademark and making sure that you're protected. Also, when you start your business, if you haven't done this yet, I suggest you start with a trademark search. And it's not just going into, the trademark office and doing a quick search, because what the trademark office does not just looks at to see if it's an identical match, but it looks to see if there's anything that can be confusing in the marketplace. So words that maybe sound similar, words that aren't even like, there's two words that are same and one completely different, they might find that similar. So just getting a basic idea, also knowing what other words, if there's different companies with same names, what those categories are. So for example, I had a client that wanted a name, and they were doing it in the branding category, marketing. There's 45 classes in trademarks. So they were in class 35. But I knew they had their dream was to expand into coaching. So we looked to see, and I'm like, oh, you're not going to be able to use this name in coaching down the road. So it's either, it gives you at least knowledge to know, like, okay, I need to just pick a new name from the get-go, or down the road, I'm going to have to do this. So that's why it's really important. And you can trademark. You can go online and trademark yourself at the trademark office. And that, you walk through the steps, or you can hire somebody. But yeah, you apply through the United States Trademark and Patent Office.
Yeah. And I remember another thing that kind of just blew my brain when I first started was somebody, and you're probably going to kill me for saying this, Lindsay, but somebody told me, go on the TESS website, the TESS.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the basic search that you're talking about, which, is a starting point, right? But that's not an end all be all. But the TESS website is through, oh, there's my cat, through the USPTO office, the Patent and Trademark Office, right? And so that being said, when I went on there, my business is Let's Get You Organized, which is all very common words, right? It's not it's, Melissa Merrill's make shit happen method or something, right? That would be a lot more specific, but Let's Get You Organized specifically was actually not being used anywhere. Let's Get Organized was already trademarked through someone else. And so that got a little confusing of okay, wait, but they're in another state and there's this and there's that. So this is why you want to hire a professional, most likely, to help you through this process, because it can get really sticky.
And also, when I do my comprehensive searches for my clients, I'm not just looking, and listen, TESS, that's a great place to start, because at least from the get-go, okay, this is already taken, I need to move on. But what I will say this is that sometimes, people will start there, but with my comprehensive search, when I do them, I look at state registrations, I look at business names, because let's say there's a million names in the all around the world, country, and maybe they haven't federally registered, but that if there's been businesses that have had 10 years, on the go, and have already started their business, you just don't want to get involved in something like that for the mere purpose, because it is first come, first serve, and they're going to be able to show that they've been in business for 10 years. So just, things to consider. And then to your other question, so trademarking and the little cute symbols that you can use. So once you you start using your name, essentially, you can use the TM. And that means that you are claiming it as your trademark. Having said that, the R is when you've actually received a registration from the trademark office.
Yep. So don't throw those around and think that you're being really cute in your Instagram bio and trademarking things. That's a big no-no. So I've seen girls do that. Now in Instagram bios specifically, you can go to those font generators and make all these cool fonts and and there is one for TM and there is one for R. So just putting that out there, not giving you legal advice, but just watch out for that. Okay, awesome. So great questions as far as the trademarks go. So here's another question. Hi from Illinois, just starting my business. I'm not business smart. So my question is, how is a sole proprietorship different than an LLC? I get this question all the time too. Let's revert to the legal professional here.
So here we go. So I was just describing before. So when you're sole prop, you are essentially it's you. So you can have a DBA, let's say, and a lot of people do have DBAs, but DBAs don't protect you in any way. So it's just basically, I'm just doing business as whatever your business, the name of your business is. LLCs provide you with a shield. So if you do, a job for somebody, and let's say, the whole closet comes crashing down, or you throw things out that you're not supposed to throw out, whatever it may be, and they come after you. As a sole prop, you are being personally sued. So that means if they were to win, they have access to your personal assets, your house, your savings account, your car, anything personal. As an LLC, you have the shield, so they can only touch your business assets. You are protected as long as you're making sure that you're keeping your business accounts separate with your personal accounts and so forth. But that is the biggest advantage for you. And also, it makes, it's a little more, I would say, business-esque efficient. It looks a little, more legit, and so forth. So yes, that's the big difference and the big reason why people should be doing that.
Yeah, I think when I side hustled, we talk a lot about in Pro Organizer Bootcamp side hustling versus going full time and all of the kind of different avenues to becoming a pro organizer. That being said, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a limited liability corporation, not a limited liability company. Okay, it's a limited, I always get those confused. Limited liability company. I file as an SCorp just because that's a whole other layer of things. So tell us a little bit about that.
So yes, okay, so it's very confusing, completely, because so as an LLC, that's a business formation. Then there's SCorps, which is also another business formation. And to be honest, most people, like I said, are going to be an LLC, because SCorps, you're thinking of like shares of stock, and you're thinking bigger, bigger situations. The SCorp status is what gets confusing, is like, oh, that must be another business formation, but it's not. In essence, you're an LLC probably with SCorp election, which means that that's just a tax election and how you get taxed. So it has less to do with the legal side of things and more to do with how you're getting taxed as an SCorp, but you were still essentially an LLC.
Right, which totally makes sense, especially now as I'm, engaged, I'm buying a home, I'm, all of these things. That's something where if I go into someone's home, we've all done it, right? Knock on wood, as organizers, we've all broken something, crashed down something. I remember one time I was on a job with an assistant and I had a ladder, because we do a lot of climbing, right? It is like somewhat dangerous work, which that's a whole other topic as far as workers' comp goes, but and insurance and liability insurance goes. But anyway, we're not going to necessarily get into any of that stuff today. But all of that being said, we were up and down in rafters and ladders and attics and all of that good stuff, and we bashed the ladder into the drywall, right? And so that's one of those moments where you're like, oh crap, now what? And that's when you really want to have that other shield of protection. I like that you refer to it as a shield of protection, because it's truly what it's meant
really
for.
is.
Yeah.
It's the biggest benefit for it.
Yep. And so this question is interesting, because this is going to depend on your state, correct?
Correct. So yeah, another question before. So how much is it to get an LLC? Gonna depend state. Every state is different for filing your LLC, so it's just going to depend on that situation. So some states are cheap, and then you have to file every year. Some states are really expensive, but maybe you don't have to file again. So it just depends. Every state is different, so to speak. And
then California is $800
to go through. Yeah, it's $100 to go through the state. Yes.
Yeah. 800. And then on this one, so at what point do you switch to an LLC? So I also get this quite a bit. It's like, okay, I'm side hustling, I have one foot in, one foot out, it's a hobby. Like, when do you recommend?
Here's the thing for me. You're asking someone is like Debbie Downer here with like legal stuff. So, for me, it's going to also depend on what you do. So here's the thing, you are going into people's houses. You are like climbing on ladders. There's potential. So in my mind, it's always worth it, even if it's a side hustle, to have an LLC, especially depending on the state you are, because there are minimum taxes and stuff. But in my mind, having that shield and not risking your personal liability is well worth it. Then you like you said, you go through someone's drywall, someone who knows, there's electrical down there, it messes things up. You don't want to ever be held liable for that.
Yeah,
I'll agree right away.
I agree with it too, because like the second this is what like, back to kind of the topic of liability insurance and stuff like that. Those are the types of questions they're going to ask you. Like, okay, so you're stepping into somebody else's homes, somebody else's space. You're putting yourself at risk because we might breathe in asbestos. We might get bit by a black widow in a garage somewhere. There might be a snake. I've seen snakes. I've seen all the things, right?
Yeah.
Over 10 years of organizing. So you're also putting yourself at risk, which you want to protect yourself, right, too, and be able to be healthy and be working and not get hurt on jobs. So I like that. Yeah, I like the right away. It's kind of a tough pill to swallow, especially if you're in California, right? It's the $800 plus all of the other filing fees, the business.
I mean, the one good thing I will say from COVID is that they waived it that first year, so you don't have to worry about that minimum tax the first year. But it's definitely something to think of for sure. So what if we're just doing this for family and friends? Do you think it's still worth it? I can't answer that in the sense that, like, a lot of people start out in the family and friends and then it starts getting more. It's how good are these friends? How good, how close is this family? Because I guarantee you, like, this goes into contracts as well, is that there's always that one person that you're like, oh, I know this person, nothing bad's going to ever happen. And unfortunately, I've seen it happen more than enough. And it ends up being from friends too, like the people that you think you can trust. Again, Debbie Downer for sure, but like these are the things that you have to watch out for.
Here's something too that I want to say on that note. This is Michelle that's asking these questions. So thank you, Michelle, for asking all of this. One thing that really helped me elevate my business and my brand and my CEO mindset of like, hey, this isn't just a passion project. This isn't just a hobby. I remember literally like sobbing, crying at my computer. It was 9 p.m. and I was just like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to set up the LLC. And I just like started crying. I was so proud of myself. Like, holy F balls, I have an actual legit company. And when those certificates start, like, I have some of them on my wall because I'm like such a cheese ball, but like when those certificates start coming into the mail and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, it really does elevate your mindset of thinking, this is just a hobby, or this is just a passion project, or this is just an anything. And it really elevates your mindset to take it seriously and to treat it like a real business, to open your business banking account, to get your checking and your savings and your business line of credit, to hire an accountant, to maybe invest in a CRM like Honeybook or QuickBooks Online to manage your invoicing and payments. Like all that crap that's like, you never want to think about when you just start this to help friends and family. But what could it turn into, right? If you want this to actually be a legit business, then those are things you might want to start thinking about.
For sure. And I just saw, so does the LLC take place of both liability insurance and DBA? Definitely not liability insurance. You still need your liability insurance, but it can take the place of the DBA in the sense that if you name your LLC what you have as a DBA, then yes. So DBA is just like a name that you could potentially use. So you could even have a DBA as an LLC if you decide to maybe go with a different name and this is what you want to call yourself out in public. But yes, definitely could take the place of the DBA, but liability insurance you will still need for sure. And also, once you get this LLC, making sure that now your contracts are with the LLC in any business capacity is really important as well.
Yeah. And one thing on the DBA, so for those of you watching that might not know what that is, so DBA stands for doing business as. It's basically a fictitious business name, which sounds like, that sounds so weird, like, oh, I don't want to be fake, like fictitious business name, but that's what it's called, right, in the government. Yeah. So that being said, you guys have probably heard me say I have Make Shit Happen LLC, right? The reason that I created an LLC that was a lot broader than just Let's Get You Organized or Let's Get You Hired or Pro Organizer Bootcamp or Networking for Assholes or the other thousands of DBAs I have is because I knew that I'm a person of many passions, right? And so I didn't want to just have Let's Get You Organized be like the main header of my LLC because I wanted to be able to branch out. I wanted to be able to do all of these other things. Like Lindsay said at the beginning, she was working with somebody that was in branding and marketing and then, maybe wanted to kind of pivot to coaching someday. So those are the things you want to think about is don't look at things in like a tunnel vision of like the next 3 months or the next 6 months or even the next year. Look at it as like your business career, your entrepreneurial journey is tied to all of this.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, it's true. I mean, it's so true.
Okay, let me see if I'm able to like ask a question on here. I don't know if I can do it, but anyway, I put it in the chat too. So, oh, there it is. Look, it's like my own question. That's funny. So what are important things to address in contracts? We get a lot of questions about contracts, and feel free to talk about your templates because I know you have some like 10% off discounts and things like that.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. So yes, for me, these are like the most important things. Addressing, like, I'm going to talk about your service agreement, because in my mind, the service agreement, so as an organizer, you're presenting, this is the contracts that you're presenting your clients. These are the services that you're giving them. This is the most important agreement that you can have, because it's your agreement between you and your client. So first off is like your services. Those are really important. And I don't want to, just brush by these, because I see a lot of times people will just be like, oh, they'll get package A. Well, what is package A? How many, hours is package A? What happens, so addressing that exactly down to like the bare bones of like so many details of like what it is. So does it include containers that you're providing? Does it include, making sure like how many hours does that include? What happens if they agree to something, you get there and you're like, oh, whoa, I did not sign up for this. What happens then? So making sure it's like really crystal clear, your services. Payment is super, super important. So when do they get paid? An example also is, let's say, you're super busy and now you have a schedule. Well, let's say they're going to, go a month from now, but they cancel in between. Well, did they have to pay a deposit, and do they get that deposit back? Because essentially, your time has been blocked off for them. So what happens in that case? What happens if they need to reschedule is really important. What happens if they, just flat out, like they don't want to use your services anymore? What do you do? So those are all important things. Also, making sure, especially for you guys, making sure that if, they don't like something, or if they want to change things around, is there like changing clauses? Like, who has the say in what? What are they responsible for? So, for example, if they're responsible for making sure that they've already thrown out the things that they don't want, that better be done before then, because if not, you're just sitting around helping them do that. So then that should be an additional charge. So making sure it's like really crystal clear that they're getting what they're getting, and any additional services they have to pay for, because unfortunately people take advantage of that stuff.
Yeah.
In addition, in those contracts for you guys, making sure, and I had mentioned it before, having social media releases and property releases. So you can take pictures of the property, you can take pictures of, of the clients and use them in your marketing. In addition, COVID releases would be really important right now, just because of today's times and whatnot, because you don't ever, these are just little things, but unfortunately they add up, that if something were to go wrong, you don't want to ever get blamed for that stuff.
Yeah. I think too, on that same note, with like the contract and the add-on services, I get this question all the time with like shopping for clients, right? Because shopping, requires your time and your energy and your planning and your routing and your mileage and your gas and buying the actual products. And so you're going to have to definitely watch out for that if you're saying, oh, shopping's included, because what the hell does that mean? So you're just going to cover up you're going to cover the cost of every single bin and basket and thing that you use in that pantry or in that garage. I would hope not, right? Unless you're charging like thousands and thousands of dollars. But for example, with the girl, most of the girls that go through my programs, they work in like 4-hour sessions for say like $300 or $200 when they're just getting started out. That's definitely not enough to cover any sort of shopping, time, money, energy, gas, mileage, all of those things. So those are the things that you're definitely going to want to watch out for, where people trying to say, well, you said that shopping was included, or you said that blah, blah, blah was included. Just make sure that you're watching that.
Yeah, for sure. So that's really important. And like, have templates for stuff that would be, so I know, like, obviously using contracts, and you get, as an attorneys, like when you think of attorneys, you think expensive and stuff, but there are ways to do this in a cheap manner that still protects yourself. And that would be like getting a template for this stuff and just having your contract template and making sure you're using that template or whatever agreement that you do use for every client, and making sure, because you want it to be consistent for each client.
Whoever commented that somebody else is live, I think I already removed her, but maybe not. So anyway, welcome to the shit show, and tune into this one and not the other one. Okay, so super helpful information on contracts. Thank you. And I like that you call them service agreements. I mean, not that you coined that term, but like I've heard like differing, verbiage, and I think service agreement really sounds better to me instead of like contract. Contract sounds so like intense, but I don't know.
And there's also, there's ways, because I get that you're, as a small business, you don't want to come at somebody with like, here's a 12-page contract for you. You want to make it, that you want something that, reflects your business as well. And you can very easily do that.
Yep. All right, another question. So we all pretty much have websites, and I know that there's like privacy policies. Like if you visit my website, there's a privacy policy on the bottom, and very fine print, because it's annoying that I even have to put that on there. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for websites, which obviously everyone has, these are things that you really do need. So privacy policy, that is a federal requirement. So if you collect information on your website, and that's just even your email address, to get those names and get those mailing lists, like, you need a privacy policy by federal law. And what a privacy policy does, it just explains the type of information that you collect, what you do with that information, and how somebody can contact you if they want you to remove that information that you have, don't contact them anymore, and so forth. So that's federal law. You have to have that. And then terms and conditions are the other side of it. So while it's not a requirement, it's something that I do suggest you have, especially in several cases. One, you are doing anything that you're selling services or selling products, digital products, anything that you're selling, you would need a terms and conditions, just because that's going to be the agreement between you and your clients. So one, it's like, okay, if you're selling digital stuff, or if you're selling, products, what's the return policy? What's the shipping policy? Making sure that if you also are selling digital products, that they can't go around and turn around and sell those digital products as their own. So making sure that you are keeping the copyright and your intellectual property with you is going to be important as well. And as well as, like, I always say a couple of things. If you're an affiliate, so if you are sending people to other links to buy things, making sure you have affiliate disclaimer, which basically states, hey, I have these links on my page to third parties. I'm in no way responsible for what happens to you if you use their products. So making sure, because it's all about reducing your risk. And then finally, if you have a blog, another important reason to have disclaimers. So if you are saying okay, this is what I do to organize my life, and because I organize my life in this way, my business has done X, Y, and Z. Well, let's say somebody goes and they're like, oh, I followed your blog to a T and people are ridiculous. And they're like, and now my life went to shit. Well, you don't want them coming to blame you. So these are things, disclaimers, and why you need them on your website.
Yeah. What that reminds me of totally is and I won't get too far into this, but with the multi-level marketing companies and the network marketing of say it's a weight loss protein shake, or say it's a fizzy powder that you put in your water, or whatever the product is, or even hair care or whatever. You always see those stars that say results not typical, blah, blah, blah. And then, or exactly. Even the income statements of these people that are I'm a millionaire selling LuLaRoe or whatever the fuck. That's what, you always want to make sure you look at the fine print, right? Look at the disclosures, and don't put yourself at legal liability. If I'm putting on my blog, here's 5 tips on how to start your organizing business. Like you said, people can be a little bit ridiculous in this day and age, and they might come, well, you said to do this and I did it, and I'm not a millionaire. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that they would even try to come after you, but you'd be surprised what people try to do these days. So
yeah. Yeah, crazy. Okay, one more question. So this in California has me just really heated, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But in most of the other states, this is pretty an across the board type thing. So let's add this question in here. So,
Yes.
which would you recommend specifically for organizers? I see a lot of times they're like, well, I want like an extra set of hands. Maybe it's like a big job, it's a hoarder job, or it's a garage or something like that. How would you navigate?
So, I mean, it's hard because yes, California is like one of those states that, are the employees, are the independent contractors. So the rule is that as an independent contractor, one, they should have their own business, providing a service of some sort of whatever you're hiring them for. And then making sure that like you basically have to tell them that they're not they're not required to do work at any specific time or any specific place. They can do it on their terms. So that's where it does get like, it is a little tricky that you're hiring these people, but you're going to have them doing what you need them to do as an extra set of hands. So technically in California, they'd probably be employees. However, people want to, finagle things, up to them. But yes, that they would be unfortunately employees. So it is something to work because anytime you tell somebody one, where they have to be, when they have to be there, and how they have to do things, they're essentially an employee.
Right.
But I will say this, when hiring an independent contractor, is really important to make sure you have an agreement beforehand with them. And I'll tell you why. So let's say you hire somebody that's going to help you with your Instagram or your logos or whatever. But let's say you don't get anything signed. Well, essentially, even though that you're paying them to do this work, they still own the work until they sign this independent contractor agreement that will state that any work that they provide is your work. So making sure that's done before is really important because it doesn't work retroactively to assign anything that they've produced into that point. So,
And I think too with like this, I mean, it's not just in California, but it kind of stems from everything going on in California. The ABC test, like you said, of, okay, this person is independent of the hiring organization. So say that it's Make Shit Happen LLC. They're independent of it. They have their own business. They perform work that's outside of my business. And they're routinely doing work in that same trade, right? So this would be like, I would hire on part-time organizers to help me out through the busy seasons, to help me out when there was overflow, things like that. They were not full-time. They were not on my payroll. They were not a W-2 employee. I was not providing them with workers' comp insurance. I was not providing them with any sort of benefits. They were their own thing, right?
yeah.
And so that being said, in California, it's gotten increasingly harder to be able to finagle that or to do anything having to do with that, right? Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. But in most other states, from what I've seen, just within the girls in my programs, it's a little bit easier to be able to bring on extra hands for help. So just make sure that you do have a contract in place for that.
Either way, like however you want to do it, making sure that that contract is also going to be important to show that, hey, they're an independent contractor, whether they are or they aren't, be like, well, they signed this agreement. They know that they weren't getting benefits and all that stuff. That's like your first line of defense as well.
Yeah. And so I think this question coming in from Nikki is more on hiring. I think this is what you're saying. Hiring like other contractors, like hiring like junk removal businesses if you need like stuff hauled away, hiring like housekeeping businesses if you need help with like cleanup on big jobs, if you need to hire, and this might not be what you're saying, but I want to say this anyway, is in those situations, because their business entity is completely separate from you. If I'm hiring Joe Schmo's junk removal has nothing to do with Make Shit Happen LLC or Let's Get You Organized. I'm subcontracting him essentially, which is like that term subcontractor that you guys hear when we talk about 1099s. So that being said, by all means, hire as much help as you want if it's like elsewhere, right? If it's a virtual assistant that's helping you with certain things. I see that happen a lot too. But if you're just saying, do you find yourself hiring often? So should you reach out to someone to hire them just to reach out to them? Hell no. You should reach out to them if you actually need help in your business and if you actually need, you have the work to be able to provide them. But I think you just said exactly. So I think we're good. So cool. Okay. It's 12:41, so we've been on for about 40 minutes. Thank you so much for answering all of these rapid fire. I love it.
Of course. Yeah, and if anyone, if you want to go on for the next 48 hours, using the code PROORG10, everything including services will be 10% off, templates and services. If I don't have a template for you, just reach out to me because I'm always constantly trying to improve my template shop, and we'll be more than happy to create a template for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, and she has an amazing website, guys. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. So it's lindsayshayconsulting.com. And then, like she said, use that code PROORG10. Thank you. That's an awesome gift to our viewers here for 10% off. She also has, I wanted to mention a little freebie on her website. So, you know, we talked about websites and disclosures and pop-ups and collecting emails and all that good stuff. Of course, she has that. So it's the 4 things all small businesses need to protect themselves. And that's just a free 4-page guide that you can find on her site. So definitely give that a look. And then for my Instagrammers that are constantly following new people and saving things and sharing things, this is Lindsay's Instagram.
Yeah.
Hopefully I spelled that right.
No, you did.
No, I didn't. Damn it.
Oh, no, you missed out.
You know what I mean. Lindsay Shay Consulting. So definitely find Lindsay on Instagram. Let her know that you really appreciated today's business advice. And if you ever have questions, feel free to send her a DM. Feel free to send me a DM.
I'm like super open. I offer free consultations for anyone who just wants to get a feel of what they need to do next. Because I know it's confusing. It's a lot. So feel free to reach out.
Yay. Thank you again for
thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we're going to have to do like a podcast episode at some point. And we'll just
I would love that.
We'll riff on all the things. Okay. Yay. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for
Thank you.